War between Israel and Hamas is further complicating nuclear dynamics in the region. The prospect of nuclear conflict in the Middle East, once unthinkable, is now a very real possibility. Today we're going to explore the unthinkable. How would Israel respond during a nuclear conflict? What's Israel's nuclear war plan? How many nuclear weapons are readily available to the Prime Minister? Where are they? What are their targets? How many missiles would be launched? How many casualties could we expect after Israeli bombs reach their destinations? What will the Middle East look like going forward? And most importantly, could Israel win a nuclear war? Israel operates under a nuclear triad, consisting of land-based road mobile intermediate-range ballistic missiles, or IRBMs, sea-based submarines armed with submarine-launched cruise missiles, or SLCMs, and air-based tactical bombers carrying gravity bombs. Now let's take a look at each part of Israel's triad and its weapon delivery systems. The first and most well-known part of Israel's nuclear triad is its land-based road mobile intermediate-range ballistic missiles, or IRBMs. Israel's road mobile IRBM force is comprised of 46 intermediate-range ballistic missiles, each mounted on a 7-axle chassis mobile launch vehicle. Israel's ballistic missile program dates back to the early 1960s. In April of 1963, several months before the Dima reactor began producing plutonium, Israel signed an agreement with the French company Dassault to produce a short-range surface-to-surface ballistic missile. The missile system became known as a Jericho, and the program was completed in the early 1970s, producing 24 to 30 missiles. The Jericho had a range of over 300 miles, traveled at speeds of over 3,800 miles per hour, reaching its target in around 7 minutes, standing at a height of 44 feet with a 1-meter diameter, and a total launch weight of 15,000 pounds. The missile used a 2-stage solid propellant engine that could be launched from a railroad flat truck or mobile launch vehicle. Each Jericho missile carried a 20-kiloton nuclear warhead. The range of the first Jericho was sufficient to strike major cities, such as Damascus and Cairo, from secure launch locations. In the late 1980s, Israel co-developed a 2-stage solid field medium-range ballistic missile, with South Africa codenamed the Jericho 2. The Jericho 2 had an increased range of 930 miles, and for the first time, put the southernmost Soviet cities and Black Sea Fleet within nuclear strike range. A modified version of the Soviet space rocket, the Jericho 2, was first deployed in the early 1990s, replacing the Jericho 1. The Jericho 2 was first flight tested in May of 1987 to approximately 527 miles, with its trajectory going far into the Mediterranean Sea. Another test in 1989 reached over 800 miles. Each Jericho 2 missile could be launched from a silo, railroad flat truck, or mobile launch vehicle. The Jericho's mobility allows it to be hidden and moved quickly or kept in a hardened silo, increasing its resilience against a preemptive strike. Each Jericho 2 can carry a 1-megaton nuclear warhead. Each warhead has an explosive yield of 125 times the destructive power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Given that approximately half of Iran, including Tehran, is beyond the range of the Jericho 2 medium-range ballistic missile, Israel is currently upgrading its arsenal with the newer and more capable 3-stage Jericho 3 intermediate-range ballistic missile. The Jericho 3 has a range of over 2,500 miles, giving it the capability to target all of Iran, Pakistan, and all of Russia west of the Ural Mountains, including for the first time the nation's capital of Moscow, with a population of over 12.6 million. The Jericho 3 was first test launched over the Mediterranean Sea in January of 2008 and entered service in 2011. Unidentified defense sources claim that the Jericho 3 constitutes, quote, a dramatic leap in Israel's nuclear missile capabilities. That's because the Jericho 3 missile is equipped with either one 400-kiloton nuclear warhead or up to 3 150-kiloton independently targetable re-entry vehicles. Each warhead has 50 times to 20 times the destructive power of the bombs dropped on Japan in 1945, respectively. In July of 2013, Israel tested an improved version of the Jericho 3 missile, the Jericho 3A, with a new motor offering the missile an intercontinental range exceeding 3,400 miles. Israel has 46 Jericho 2 and Jericho 3s deployed at Stop Mika, near the town of Saqqara in the Judean Hills, approximately 17 miles east of Jerusalem. These missiles are dispersed in 23 hardened caves with 2 launchers deployed in each cave. As with all things, there are advantages and disadvantages of Israel's road mobile intermediate-range ballistic missiles. The primary disadvantage of Israel's road mobile medium-range ballistic missiles is their location. The Shamaka missile base is relatively small at just 10 square miles, with launcher caves located along 2 roads, each of which is only a little more than half a mile long. Although this layout would provide protection against limited conventional attacks, if not dispersed quickly enough, the base's layout leaves Israel's Jericho missiles vulnerable to a surprise nuclear attack. The primary advantage of Israel's road-mobile medium-range ballistic missiles is their ability to leave their caves and disperse, with sufficient warning time and insufficient satellite visibility for the attacking country to track mobile launchers. The area that the road-mobile medium-range ballistic missiles could be in would be too large to be bombarded by an attacking country's nuclear arsenal, thus ensuring the Jericho survivability during an attack. The second arm of Israel's nuclear triad is its air-based tactical bombers. Israel currently operates a potential fleet of 225 tactical bombers, consisting of over 200 F-16s and 25 F-15Is. Since the 1980s, the F-16 has been the backbone of the Israeli Air Force. The Israeli Defense Force ordered a total of 362 F-16s, from the early F-16ABs to the latest F-16I. 50 of those aircraft were given to Israel by the US, as payment for restraint during the 1991 Gulf War. All Israeli F-16s are fitted with custom electronics. The F-16 has for many years been thought to be the most likely candidate for air delivery of Israeli nuclear weapons. Various versions of the F-16 served nuclear strike roles in the US Air Force, among NATO allies. Of the 67 kills achieved by the F-16 worldwide, 47 are accredited to Israel. Israeli F-16s first saw combat on April 28th of 1981, when an Israeli F-16 from the 1st Jet Squadron shot down a Syrian Mi-8 helicopter over Rask, near the Lebanese town of Zil. 5 hours later, another Syrian Mi-8 fell prey to an F-16 from the same squadron. Then on June 7th of 1981, Operation Opera brought a swift end to Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons program, when 8 IDF F-16s destroyed Iraq's Ozark nuclear reactor near Baghdad, during a 1,000-mile round-trip journey that well exceeded the F-16's official combat range. Furthermore, since 1998, Israel has deployed 25 Boeing F-15E Strike Eagles for long-range strike and air superiority roles. In November of 1974, when President Gerald Ford first accepted the first F-15 on behalf of Tactical Air Command, the aircraft was heralded as the best air-to-air fighter ever built. It's not surprising then that leaders of the Israeli Air Force were interested in the F-15. A deal was struck, and in December of 1976, the Israelis received their first shipment of F-15 fighters. The Israeli version, also known as the F-15I, or BAZ, is characterized by its greater takeoff weight and attack range, with the ability to reach its targets within a 2,800-mile radius from takeoff, at speeds of 2,000 miles per hour, with tensions and hostilities in the Middle East reaching a boiling point. It was probably inevitable that Israel would be the first to use the F-15 in combat. Its notable combat missions include the spring campaign against the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, in 1979, where Israeli F-15s conducted reconnaissance flights and bombing attacks on suspected terrorist camps and training facilities in Lebanon, achieving 10 kills against the Syrian MiG-21. From the time the Israeli Air Force began flying the F-15 until the ceasefire in June of 1982, F-15 scored 58 kills, with no losses against Syrian MiGs. Modified with specialized terrain mapping radar and other advanced navigation guidance systems, the F-15 Strike Eagle is well suited for its nuclear strike role. Approximately 30 of Israel's nuclear weapons are believed to be air-deliverable gravity bombs. Israel's gravity bombs are stored in 2 underground facilities at 2 Air Force bases: Tonov Air Force Base in central Israel and Hastrom Air Force Base in the Negev Desert. As with all things, there are advantages and disadvantages of Israel's air-delivered gravity bombs. Their first benefit comes from their mode of delivery, with the capability being dropped at speeds of Mach 2 and from an altitude of 50,000 feet. Air delivery of Israel's nuclear gravity bombs allows attacking personnel to evade defensive fire and countermeasures from the enemy target area. Furthermore, Israel's nuclear gravity bombs are the most flexible nuclear option, with the advantage of being able to change targets mid-flight, or to be called back if tensions cool. The primary disadvantage of Israel's nuclear bombers is their response time. They take a lot longer to get in the air, and if air bases aren't on high alert or if planes aren't already in flight, there's a high probability of them being destroyed in an initial surprise attack. The last and most important of Israel's nuclear triad are its ballistic missile submarines. The Israel Navy operates a fleet of 5 Delphin-class ballistic missile submarines. Each submarine carries up to 4 Popeye Turbo submarine-launched nuclear cruise missiles. Although Israel's submarines are home-ported near Haifa in the Mediterranean coast, in recent years they've occasionally sailed through the Suez Canal as a likely deterrent to signal Iran. The Popeye Turbo is the most survivable weapon in Israel's nuclear arsenal. Each missile is armed with up to one 20-kiloton nuclear warhead. In theory, each sub can launch its entire 4-missile payload virtually undetected in under 2 minutes. When launched, the Popeye Turbo travels at speeds exceeding 550 miles per hour, has a range of over 600 miles, and typically reaches its target or targets in around 5 minutes. Just one missile alone has 2 times the destructive power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. There are numerous advantages of the ballistic missile submarine. For starters, they make up the most survivable leg of the nuclear triad. Ballistic missile submarines are virtually undetectable at sea. Their self-design makes finding one an almost impossible task, giving pause to potential adversaries. Furthermore, submarine-launched cruise missiles are a lot harder to defend against. When launched, an enemy force would have to counterattack each missile individually, making defense costly and complicated. The small size also makes them difficult to detect on radar, with at least 2 submarines on constant patrol at all times. Ballistic missile submarines assure that Israel can strike at any time, anywhere, even after a surprise attack. In terms of disadvantages, there simply are none.